What's the point of a big awards show? Well, it's a way for you to get a glimpse into what powerful people think is important, what they value. In China, one of the places that happens is at the Weibo Awards. It's Chinese social media's night of nights, and it gives us a window into what Chinese society is talking about. But it wasn't just about dancing robots and labubus. It was also about this guy.
Hello, 大家好，我是演员王兴。
Actor Wang Xing's career isn't particularly illustrious. He's no Xiao Zhan or Wang Yibao. The reason he was up on stage, though, was not because of what he's done in his career, but because of what he's lived through.
I'm extremely honoured to be up on this stage as Weibo's most influential person of this year.
In 2025, Wang Xing was a victim of a scam centre, but not in the way you might think.
Today, increasingly sophisticated scams are a constant threat to the safety and happiness of ordinary people.
Over the last few years, scam compounds have exploded through Southeast Asia. They're filled with human trafficking victims, many of whom are Chinese citizens.
Nice to see you. I will message you WhatsApp, okay?
Countries like Cambodia and Myanmar in particular are turning a blind eye to scammers operating within their borders. And they're making millions.
The people I spoke to described this compounds as a mix of a business and a prison.
They're made to sign contracts that really mean nothing.
People are held against their will and forced to scam across the world.
China has spent years building economic relationships with its neighbours in the region. Some countries, like Myanmar and Cambodia, have built strategic relationships too, where they rely on Beijing for at least some of their security needs. Despite this, all these countries remain pretty independent. China doesn't really meddle in the affairs of its allies. The government has taken a bit of a chill, don't ask, don't tell approach. But now, Chinese President Xi Jinping is done with being chill. He's decided these huge scamming operations, which are largely staffed by kidnapped Chinese nationals, have crossed a line. And he's starting to crack down.
Chinese state media says the government has executed 11 members of a notorious family that ran scam centres in Myanmar.
Today, the moment Southeast Asia discovered that a vibes-based patronage relationship with China actually does have terms and conditions. I'm Matt Bevan, and this is If You're Listening. Let me give you the full story about our award winner, Wang Xing. Last year, while looking for acting work, Wang got a message. It was from the major Thai entertainment conglomerate GMM Grammy, offering him an audition for a major role. Wang thought that this could be his big break, so he sent in an audition tape. A few days later, he got another message saying he'd got the gig, but he'd have to fly to Bangkok to film in a remote part of Thailand. He landed at the airport, where a man was waiting to drive him to the shoot. He was dropped off at a shopping mall where he changed into a new car with a new driver. Now, over the course of this trip, Wang was sending his girlfriend, Jia Jia, regular updates of his journey. But when Wang arrived at the location, the messages stopped coming. It turns out when they said shooting location, they were being quite literal about that. Wang was confronted by men with guns, bundled onto a boat and transported across a river. Unbeknownst to Wang, he was crossing the Moai River, which happens to form the border between Thailand and Myanmar. And legally speaking, being in Myanmar is a very different vibe than being in Thailand.
The country remains caught in a relentless spiral of violence and unrest, with many either forced to take up arms or flee altogether.
After a brief dalliance with democracy, there was a military coup in 2021. The country has been in a civil war between the military junta and various rebel groups ever since. For that reason, in Myanmar, the rule of law is not really a thing. Large parts of the country are under the control of rebel groups and criminal gangs.
Many of these areas in Myanmar are in a sort of no man's land because it's run by various ethnic groups fighting the Burmese military junta. So there's really no clear jurisdiction.
When you cross the river from Thailand into Myanmar, there's no welcome to the lawless Thai-Burmese borderlands sign. There is, however, a compound with a surprisingly nice name, Apollo Park. Unfortunately for Wang, the name was the only nice thing about it. When he was interviewed on Thai TV, Wang told reporters that it was a sizable operation.
Can you go out of the building? I can't.
So Wang was brought inside the complex and roughed up. The guards even shaved his head.
When you shave your hair, because everyone needs cuts of it. Somebody did it. Yeah, somebody did it. I can't do that by myself. It's my hair.
Then he was quickly put to work. The men began to train him in the techniques of online fraud. He was put in the beginner class, sending text-based fraud messages to potential victims rather than using voice or video calls. In Apollo Park, the name of the game was pig butchering. It's a type of romance scam. It's an awful term, but that's what the industry calls it. Scammers identify pigs or vulnerable targets. They fatten the pigs up with romantic advances, and then they pick their moment to butcher the pig, requesting a large amount of money to help with a fake medical issue or an immigration quagmire or something like that. Pig butchering was Wang Xing's new job. Meanwhile, back home in China, his girlfriend Jia Jia was panicking. She went to her local police station and filed a missing persons report. But Chinese police don't have any jurisdiction over the aforementioned lawless Thai-Burmese borderlands. They told her there was nothing they could do. Out of desperation, she put a post up on the Chinese social media platform Weibo, and the post went viral.
Notable figures in the entertainment industry expressed their worries, amplifying the call for assistance.
Now, Weibo is a big deal. You saw what their award ceremony was like. The social media platform has around 600 million monthly active users, so viral posts can have a massive real-world impact.
China's public outrage was huge. Concerts, shows, and tour groups were cancelled, and Chinese tourists began avoiding Thailand for safety concerns.
Jia Jia kept up the momentum, heading straight to the Chinese embassy in Bangkok, where Wang Xing's abduction was becoming a big story.
The story of the actor Wang Xing has sparked discussions here in Thailand. Local media provided almost hourly updates on his situation.
Suddenly, the case was a big problem for the Thai authorities, so they decided to take action. And they acted fast. I want to put this in perspective. Jia Jia arrived in Bangkok in the morning, and by the evening, the Thai army had picked up Wang from the compound.
Until the army just with weapon and just push me into the car, I know, wow, maybe it's not in Thailand.
Wang thought he was still in Thailand. He was returned home safely to China right after he reassured news reporters that Thailand was actually very safe.
It's very appreciated. Yeah, and also Thailand is very safe. And I'm gonna go back again. Yes, and everything in here is good.
Pay no attention to the intimidating Thai policeman looming over his shoulder there. Despite his sharp haircut and fresh psychological trauma, the kidnapping did wonders for Wang's acting career. Wang and Jia Jia still regularly post social media updates about his recovery from the ordeal. He was even invited onto a reality show, sort of a Next Top Model but for aspiring actors, and asked to perform a scene depicting a man on a phone call being held captive by scammers.
等我这次回去，我们一起去看桥，好吗？
Wang wasn't the first story of his type to go mainstream in China. It's becoming more and more common. And as a result, there's been a big push by Chinese media to raise awareness of this sort of crime. In 2023, a Chinese film called No More Bets was released, which told the story of a Chinese man trafficked to a scam compound in the fictional country of Canaan. The movie didn't do very well at the Cambodian box office, largely because the government banned it. It was also denounced by the Myanmar government because, despite being set in a fictional country, all the bad guys were speaking Burmese. But in China, the movie was a box office smash. In fact, it was the #1 movie in the world on its opening weekend, overtaking both Barbie and Oppenheimer, which were in cinemas at the same time. Unfortunately, No More Betzenheimer didn't have quite the same ring to it. The positive reception shows that this is a problem the Chinese government is aware of and is becoming increasingly frustrated with. And that's because there's been a huge spike in Chinese nationals getting kidnapped. It's becoming harder and harder to ignore. The UN estimates that there are hundreds of thousands of trafficked workers trapped in Southeast Asia. And Chinese state media reported in 2024 that there were over 50,000 Chinese nationals detained in Myanmar needing repatriation. It's a tried and tested system. Victims are lured with phony offers of high-paying jobs.
This 23-year-old Chinese national was lured to Cambodia with the promise of a job promoting online games. This 24-year-old signed up to be a quality controller in a food factory.
Only to be kidnapped, transported, and held captive.
And once they're smuggled in, they're told straight up, either scam people online or their families have to pay ransom to get them out.
Many of the victims are forced to work with threats of beatings or worse.
Some are forced to run under the scorching sun, while others were beaten with electric batons. And there have been reports, Yvonne, of people being beaten to death.
Many resort to desperate means to try and escape.
This 27-year-old jumped from a scam compound in January 2022,
often landing them in worse situations.
Security guards dragged him back to the compound, where he says his boss extorted $30,000 from his family before sending him to hospital.
Now, the curious thing is, these scamming compounds aren't as underground as you might think. They're not hidden in the jungle or in bunkers underground. Most of the time, they're actually operating in plain sight. Often, the local authorities know all about these compounds. When the Thai army wanted to find our kidnapped actor, it took less than 24 hours to nab him. So why are these people allowed to operate so brazenly? Well, let me explain how the money side of these scam centres works, and that might make the whole thing a little bit clearer. So let's take a trip to civil war-ravaged Myanmar. In the last few years, there's been a massive increase in all kinds of criminal activity. In 2023, Myanmar became the world's biggest producer of opium, and the scam centres there are growing in size.
The compounds in Myanmar are run by criminal gangs as part of a wider network across Southeast Asia.
Myanmar's military junta doesn't really have the means to control the chaos on the ground. And anyway, they're being paid to look the other way.
The military has long been accused of turning a blind eye to scores of scam centers and even making money from them.
It's conceivable that these scammers are bribing both Thai as well as Myanmar officials in order to be able to operate.
So, there's not much stopping these gangs from moving into an old warehouse and setting up their own internet access.
Scam centers in the area had recently installed Starlink receivers.
In the part of Myanmar closest to the Thai border, you've also got to deal with the Karen Border Force, which is not a mercenary army you employ when you need to talk to the manager, but rather a local ruling militia in the region. They just have to cut a deal. They pay the Karens to use their territory, and the Karens send soldiers to defend the compounds. And the money starts to roll in.
According to the FBI, worldwide scamming syndicates are now making billions of dollars a year from fraud, drug trafficking and money laundering in more than 80 countries.
These scam centres proved so lucrative, they spread across the entire region. Everyone wanted a piece of the action. Operations started popping up in Cambodia, which isn't in a civil war, but does have a government willing to look the other way for the right price. It's become so well financed that these criminal masterminds have even built entire sets and sound stages for their scams.
I'm stepping in what looks to be like a bank branch of a Vietnamese bank. There's a logo, there are pictures on the wall, there's signage everywhere. But this isn't a bank in Vietnam, I'm not even in Vietnam. This is the site of a major, now deserted scam center in Cambodia.
Why build a fake bank? Well, it makes the scammers' Zoom calls look more legitimate if there's a bank logo on the wall in the background. Southeast Asia is now host to hundreds of thousands of trafficked victims of more than 80 nationalities. And the trafficking is getting worse as the ringleaders of these scam centres become more brazen. Many of them have connections to those in senior positions in the local authorities and the government, so they have little reason to stop.
Thailand's Deputy Finance Minister has stepped down over allegations linking him to transnational scam operations in Cambodia.
When confronted, authorities simply fall on a reliable playbook of excuses. The problem is exaggerated, and many of these victims are simply lying about being trafficked.
The province's Deputy Governor, Long Demonch, claims most complaints of trafficking and confinement by scam companies are fabricated and merely contract disputes.
It is very difficult for me to believe it, but if we get a strong evidence, we bring the offenders to the court for the judgment. I think maybe that's enough.
So Myanmar doesn't have the means to stop the scam centres, and the local militias are making billions by providing the scammers with security and transport, and even leasing them the land for their compounds in the first place. This has laid the groundwork for a veritable industrial revolution in the scam industry. Interpol has reported an increase in fraud reports of 54% over the last 2 years. And there's been massive infrastructure development along the Myanmar-Thailand border. But there's one thing that might hamper their growth. Believe it or not, there are some downsides to letting an international kidnapping ring operate within your borders, like pissing off your neighbours. One quite powerful neighbour in particular. Ever since the Myanmar military took over the government in that coup in 2021, China has been playing a delicate game. It's invested significant amounts of money in infrastructure in Myanmar because of its geographic position.
So Myanmar is really a gateway to Indian Ocean, right? The Sino-Myanmar pipelines that provide Beijing with a direct, corridor to the Bay of Bengal. So that kind of thing, that's a huge interest for China.
They don't really care who wins the civil war between the military junta and the rebel groups, as long as nobody messes with their strategic interests, their roads, ports and pipelines.
That China's actually backing all sides to this conflict in very complicated ways. It's been selling weapons to the Myanmar military for more than 30 years. But it also allows arms sales to go through to the Three Brotherhood Alliance.
So they'll support anyone, as long as they don't mess with them. But unfortunately for Beijing, the criminal gangs which operate the scam centres haven't got that memo. An increasingly large proportion of the victims and the operators of these scam trafficking operations have been Chinese nationals.
The buses at the compound bear the signage of Chinese conglomerate Hung He.
We know many of these centres are run by Chinese nationals.
It's not a very good look. These scammers are able to abscond with kidnapped victims to countries right in China's backyard, where they know they can operate with impunity. But now, the Chinese government is beginning to act.
China will continue to deepen international law enforcement cooperation and step up efforts to combat telecom fraud, online gambling and other related cross-border criminal activities.
They even brought in the big dog himself.
The matter was raised to no less than the Chinese President Xi Jinping. And according to the news, the Chinese President Xi, has expressed support for the crackdown.
It's becoming quite the dilemma for Myanmar. Do you stick with the illegal scam centre that's paying you handsome bribes, or do you side with the massive regional superpower that gives you the financial and military support you need to exist?
Myanmar's military has released dramatic video of a large scam center being demolished.
Okay, they're on Team China, clearly. And nearby countries are following suit.
Thailand's Prime Minister has gone to great length to reassure Chinese tourists, even traveling to Beijing, to promise stronger security measures. On the ground, Thailand has also cut electricity to these scam compounds near its border.
And the Cambodian government has vowed to end all scam network operations within their borders by the Khmer New Year.
We have to carry out a critical investigation and must find out their assets and confiscate the money and put it as state property or to pay the victimised people.
Speaking of which, when is the Khmer New Year? Oh, it's April 14th. Better get cracking. But the unfortunate side effect is that when you shut down or blow up a huge centre of human trafficking victims, you end up with a huge amount of stranded human trafficking victims.
Footage from the Thai army shows hundreds of people crossing a river border into Thailand.
Thousands who have been freed are currently stuck at the border.
Considering the UN's estimations of hundreds of thousands more trafficked workers in the region, this is shaping up to be a potential humanitarian crisis. This crackdown has only happened because of China's frustration. But here's the issue. China only cares if Chinese people are being kidnapped. If you want to kidnap people from other parts of Asia or Africa or Eastern Europe, that's all good in the hood. China might be trying to close the gate in their backyard, but the horse has already bolted elsewhere, and we can't rely on them to solve this problem. So until someone thinks of a better solution, if you get a message on your phone that seems too good to be true, it probably is.